Hi fans of high quality entertainment. On this channel I'm ranking and reviewing all of the Beach Boys albums, and up next is going to be their third album, Surfer Girl. But I thought I would do a Beatles related video. And these are 25 questions that I made up, and thanks to Nicholas Pearl, who added, he gave me 3 more questions and I used 2 of them, so thank you, Nicholas. 25 questions about the Beatles, and I'm just looking forward to hopefully some replies in the comment section below. What I might do is copy and paste all of the questions, and then for your comments you can copy and paste all of the questions and then just add your answer to each of them, make it a little easier. So here we go. Who is your favorite Beatle? So when I ask that, I mean during the Beatles era, not later on, like today. But during the Beatles era, who would you consider your favorite Beatle? Mine would be John Lennon. Who was the most talented Beatle? Of course, they were all talented, but I gotta go with Paul McCartney for all of the instruments he can play and everything, right? Who was the coolest Beatle? Has to be John Lennon, but George is pretty close to him. And also, I almost want to make a video on this sometime. I think Paul McCartney, I know he's kind of known as the nerdiest of the Beatles sometimes, or the the guy that makes all the granny music, but he's cool too, as is Ringo. Who was the funniest Beatle? John Lennon. Who had the best voice? The best voice? I would have to say Paul McCartney. Who was the best songwriter? John Lennon. Who changed the most from the early years to the later years out of the 4 personalities? Ringo kind of stayed himself, even though of course he changed looks-wise. Paul kind of changed too, and George and John. But I gotta go with John Lennon with, the granny glasses and everything else about him. Who had the most unique personality? I would say Ringo. Who was the most underrated Beatle? Actually, I was gonna, most people would say George Harrison, but I think Ringo's kind of underrated too. But I'll go with George Harrison. Who was the most important Beatle to the band's success? Well, it took 4 of them to make the Beatles. But if I had to choose one, oh boy. I think I'm going to go with Paul McCartney because for a lot of the songs that he collaborated with John on, I think he brought the melodic sense to the songs to make them catchy, right? Who had the best style or image? John Lennon. Who would you most want to hang out with for a day? Of course, if all 4, maybe putting yourself back in the 60s. Or whenever you like. I think I would like to hang. George Harrison is kind of my personality, I think, of the 4 of them. A little more laid back. Not that he was the quiet Beatle, because he could talk. But I would say George Harrison. Who seemed the most mysterious? George Harrison. Who contributed the most to the Beatles' experimental side? Paul McCartney. Who had the most emotional songs? John Lennon. Who was the true heart of the Beatles? John Lennon. If you could only listen to one Beatles song for the rest of your life, what song would you choose? It would be Tomorrow Never Knows. Who was the best live performer out of all the Beatles? Gotta go with Paul McCartney. Who had the most memorable post-Beatles songs? Paul McCartney, because he made the most music out of all four of them. Who was the best-looking Beatle in their prime? They all had their moments where they looked the coolest and the most handsome or whatever. But I got to go with Paul McCartney. Which Beatle do you relate to the most? I know I mentioned George Harrison, personality-wise. But I'm going to go with John Lennon because of everything about him. And he was experimental too, not as much as Paul in the 60s or even the 70s, but yeah, I'm going to go with John Lennon. Which Beatle do you think is most misunderstood? I think Paul McCartney, because I don't think like I said, he's never considered the coolest Beatle. But even at his 80s most uncoolest, he was cool because he didn't care if he was uncool. That's the way I look at it. He was himself, right? Who had the best album as a solo artist? All four of them had pretty darn good albums. Ringo with his Ringo album. George Harrison with All Things Must Pass. Paul, I would choose Ram, and John, I would choose Plastic Ono Band. I gotta go with Paul McCartney's Ram. And who had the best single as a solo artist, including the B-side? I gotta go with George Harrison, the B-side to My Sweet Lord, Isn't It a Pity? And that is it. Hopefully looking forward to some answers to these questions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.